They're doing it again.
Hello.
Lambert, where are you? What are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's
I'm
up?
having a hard time hearing you, but I don't care because I'll just go on faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? Uh, I'm on the loading dock behind the stage at the venue, man.
Wow.
After a very long drive down from New York, stopping in Baltimore for a crab cake, you can't beat that. And oh man, we have been so lucky to do this from the comfort of our own home, especially on the beloved couch of old. But this is better, man. You
That's
can't beat
great.
this. Being at a show and being surrounded by so many happy people is a pretty cool thing. But we're happy that there are happy people out there watching this on Nugs.net as well.
Can you hear me at all?
Again, you'll
You
just have
can't.
to assume that I'm hearing you because I'm not. But
All
why don't you run down the set list and then we'll jump on to other business.
right. I will do that, man. And once again, they hit the ground running. That was a magnificent Here Comes Sunshine. And they went right into Mississippi Half Step and I thought they were starting to do this little musical hint of Mr. Charlie, and damn right they did. They just rolled right into Mr. Charlie. It was a really nice segue. And then they did He's Gone, Brown Eyed Women, which, as in earlier in the tour, featured some really, really amazing interplay between Jeff Chimenti and John Mayer. And then Dear Prudence, and they ended the set with Turn On Your Love Light. Gary appears to be having technical difficulties.
Well, all right.
He's can
And hey, since you can hear me, I'm hearing you a little bit through my computer speaker. We're still ironing out the kinks. This is the first time we've done this remote from a venue, and it's going to get so much better. It's going to get as close to just exactly perfect as we possibly can. But we're going to tell you about Nugs.net and how wonderful this whole thing is. But we want to tell you also about something cool that Mickey Hart has going on. Uh, of course, we all know about Mickey's Sonic art, which we're going to hear a lot of in the second set. He's got something so cool prepared for tonight. Every drums has been different, and this one's going to be really amazing. Um,
Nice.
but Mickey is also a maker of visual art, and he's got an art show in this area in the DC suburbs, and he's going to be there tomorrow at the Wentworth Gallery at a place called Tyson's Galleria in McLean, Virginia. That's suburban DC. Tomorrow, June 4th at 2 p.m. So if you're hanging around in the area before going on to wherever is next, I forget, Detroit, I think, is next. Um,
I think it's Burgettstown, PA, I
no,
think is
Pittsburgh.
next.
That's right,
Oh, yeah,
near
yeah, yeah.
Pittsburgh, Burgerstown. So anyway, Mickey is going to be at this place, meeting and greeting and showing his phantasmagoric art, which comes from the same brain that makes that phantasmagoric music. So you can bet it's going to be out there.
Yes, I've seen some of Mickey's art. That's great. You
So
can't hear me.
David, why don't you handle the heavy lifting on talking about Nugs because I'm a little bit impaired on the hearing department.
Okay. Well, Gary, if Gary could hear me, he would agree that what. Sorry, I'm doing this from the comfort of my couch at home, and I'm just having a great time doing it. My cats are wandering around here. My wife is out of town, so I got my feet up on the couch and just having a fine time. And it's because Nugsnet is providing this amazing quality feed here. If you're watching this on the free preview on YouTube, I hope you're watching it on the big screen because the HD feed that I'm getting over here on my home screen through my Apple TV and the Nugsnet app is just spectacular. And of course, I'm piping it through my home stereo with the clip speakers, and it sounds terrific. And again, since my wife is out of town, I have it cranked up pretty loud. So I'm thoroughly enjoying Nugsnet's coverage of this live as a live streaming thing. But I'll tell you something else. 2 nights ago, Gary and I co-hosted this thing, and I had some friends over, and I have to confess, in retrospect, I missed a lot of really good music because I was schmoozing with my friends. And so I went back the next morning and watched the whole thing on Nugsnet on demand, which is another part of the deal. Once you watch your stream, you got 48 hours to watch it as many times as you want. So I was able to watch the whole show again and pay more attention to it and catch up with what I missed. That's part of the deal here. When you subscribe, you can subscribe to the whole tour. You can buy them show by show. If you're looking at this as the free preview, you can just trust me on this. The first set was pretty damn good. You might as well just buy the damn thing and go back and watch the first set when you get a minute.
Yeah.
And then there's the streaming service, and then there's the audio downloads, another service that I take advantage of. It takes them a day or two to get each one of these Dead and Company shows up because they're being remixed by John Altschuler from the live recordings. So what you get for your downloads from Nugsnet is just a properly mixed. It's like the Betty boards, man. It's what a separate mix made just for the listeners for the stereo for the download. So it's really top quality stuff, and you can get it in a variety of different audio formats and all that. So we're being paid by Nugsnet to tell all this to you, but we don't have to BS at all because we are believers in the product.
And while we are giving due credit to John Altschuler for the remixes you're getting, we should also say that what you're hearing right now, just in the preview of the set, and also what you're going to hear if you buy this live and catch the live stream, is done by Ross Harris. Um,
Very good.
as we know, Derek Featherstone does a great job out in the house mixing. I was at the board, and oh boy, does it sound great out there. Ross Harris is the man who makes it sound so good for live broadcast, and then Altschuler takes over and tweaks it a little more for tomorrow. It takes a damn village to make this stuff work,
Well,
and
three,
what a village we've got.
three different mixes. Each is optimized for its purpose. Derek Featherstone's house mix is for the people listening to it live. And then there's the mix for the live stream for people listening at home, which is a different sound reinforcement task altogether. And then there's the leisurely remix. The guy probably has like a day to get it done. And
So get this:
you know,
you're getting a great house mix, you're getting a great live broadcast, and it's like you're getting a live album the next day. This is the fastest turnaround on live albums you could ever get anywhere in the world.
this is great. You know, I've been pitching community radio fundraisers with Gary Lambert since 1986. It's a little bit odd to be doing this for a for-profit service, but Nugsnet was started by Deadheads for the purpose of disseminating high-quality live music. And look where we're at with that now. Thank you, Brad Serling and Nugs.net, for everything you have
Yes,
done
indeed.
for delivering live music into the ears of thirsty people.
And thanks to Ross Harris as well for doing his job
Thank
right
you.
here. So listen, we should get to our interview because we have a
We
limited
should.
amount of break time, and we talked to a great pal of ours. David set it up because I'm somewhat impaired, and I
This
don't
is
mean the way I'm often impaired at shows. So
it's David Lemieux, right?
this is David Lemieux. That's right,
Okay, right.
and
Good.
a guy who knows something about this music.
This is very true. He's the archivist for the Grateful Dead, and he's also referred to as the legacy manager in the amazing, great, good old Grateful Dead cast. It's basically David's job to see that the best music is released in the Dave's Pick series and put on screens in the meetup at the movies and all that kind of stuff. He's the manager of the Grateful Dead's legacy, and he's doing a damn fine job of it. One caveat about this video you're about to see is that I am having trouble managing my damn Zoom recording, and I've had other issues with my Zoom recordings. This one apparently only recorded David Lemieux, so you don't have to look at the other familiar faces. Lambert and I will be off screen voices during the course of this. And furthermore, we will not be back after the video. It will return to that please stay tuned screen until the band returns. So thanks everybody for paying attention to this. Please do visit nugs.net or livedead.co and find out what your many options are for being part of that. And please enjoy this conversation with Grateful Dead Legacy Manager David Lemieux.
And we'll talk to you on Monday again.
All right, David Lemieux, I'm going to begin by embarrassing you, I think. The last time we spoke a few weeks ago, you were on your way to Toronto to run in a marathon, and then you were going to have surgery. And now I hear that you had your surgery and then you came back and ran another half marathon. What sort of superhuman being are you?
But it's again, it's the human body. I don't know what goes on in there, but yeah, I did the full marathon in Toronto, and then 2 days later flew back west. Then the surgery, and 19 days after surgery, I ran another half marathon. But those first 17 days after surgery were not good. They were a lot of pain, and I thought you get to that point where you think I'm never going to be able to run again. And then
Whoa.
I woke up the morning of the half marathon. It was like that. And it was a 95% improvement overnight, basically. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I feel good. So, yeah, ran, had a good time.
Well,
Well,
congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, yeah, enduring surgery, running a marathon, that's all well and good. But when you want to talk about superhuman activities, this Here Comes Sunshine box set.
Yes.
Now, that's where you really become a superhero, Lemieux.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that to me is that's the one I'm most looking forward to.
You could not have picked a stronger period for my taste than 1973. I'm so happy with your choices for that. Tell us more about it.
Well, the five shows from May 13th, 20th, and 26th, and June 9th and 10th at RFK Stadium. Any of these five shows, two or three in particular, but any of the five have been given consideration over the years as individual releases. Kezar certainly has, Des Moines and Santa Barbara. And of course, RFK, I'd always kind of thought of maybe a 7 CD box set. And we never pulled the trigger on it. We just kind of always thought, maybe there's something bigger here. Maybe we can do a bigger box. And then about a year ago, when we were looking into this year's box set, and last year, as you might remember, we did the Madison Square Garden. So we'd done something from the early 80s very recently, some terrific Brent era Grateful Dead from 6 shows. So we thought it was time to go a little different. And we, it had been something that I've been working on for a while as a concept. I call them kind of the conceptual stage. And then as we really started digging into it about a little over a year ago, we thought this would be the perfect, and it turned into, I think, 17 CDs. A couple of them are 4 CD sets. And each of the shows complement one another, because even though in particular, the first 3 shows, the May shows, very similar set lists, length, very different performances. And that's what I love about the Grateful Dead. Each of those second sets kind of focuses on a He's Gone Truckin', other one, Eyes of the World sort of theme, but every one of them is very, very different. And then RFK is a standalone thing. The 2 shows, magnificent. I've always loved those shows. The June 10th show has been a cornerstone of my tape collection going back to the mid 80s. You're probably even a bit before that. And then the Kezar show is another. And David, I think you're at Kezar, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. I remember you saying to me over 2 decades ago that you could tell who was at the show this week by who had the sunburned face walking around San Francisco. So it's cool that we've got some Des Moines, we've got the Midwest, we've got the Southern California with Santa Barbara, we've got the hometown show at Kezar in the Haight, kind of right beside Golden Gate Park, and then East Coast big stadium show where I saw the Dead a few times in the late 80s at RFK Stadium. So it kind of covers all the regions of Grateful Dead performances, and the performances are all, I think, outstanding. And they sound great. They were recorded. It's a weird one in a good way, recorded by 3 recording engineers. We've got some Betty Cantor Jackson, we've got some Kid Candelaria, and we've got some Bear. We've got some Owsley Stanley recordings.
So that also adds some variety to the program. That's fascinating.
It does, and they're slightly different recording techniques,
Yeah.
and the sound. They all sound great. They all sound slightly different from one another, which again is another great thing. It's it's like Grateful Dead playing different songs in a row in different keys. It's just slightly different. You just kind of notice these little nuances, and I love it. So I'm excited about this one. I think it comes out in less than 4 weeks.
Oh,
so
boy.
It's a good one.
Well, something I've been thinking about in 1973 is that the reason it seems so transformative in the Grateful Dead's life is it was really the first irrevocable beginning of the post-Pigpen era. I mean, we had Pigpen gone for a while in 1971, and then he came back and he did Europe 72, and then he was gone again. But that period, they were breaking Keith Gotcha in, and they were figuring out how to play with Pigpen and without Pigpen.
I saw the first shows after Pigpen passed in March of '73, and it was a band that had to shed that skin and become something different, and you hear that through that year where they realize we can't replace Pigpen. There is no other Pigpen. So what do we do? And I think it manifested itself in the quality of the improvisation and the way different instrumental voices in the band emerged. And that's evident, I'm sure, on the box set, and it was evident as that year went on and into the recording of Wake of the Flood and all that. So it really is a new era of Grateful Dead dawning.
It is. Those Nassau shows were that definitive, the definite moment where, it's the acknowledgement that Pigpen's not coming back. And like you say, it's a whole new direction for the Grateful Dead. Whereas the later 1972, I don't know. I've never talked with the band about it, but I'm sure there was a hope that he'd come back in later 72. So it's a continuation of Europe 72, that sound. But there's something very different once those Nassau shows happened in March. And this is the continuation of that. They did that little tour with Nassau and Boston and the Spectrum. And then the night after that tour, after 5 or 6 weeks off, were these 5 shows. And they're very different from the fall of 72. So I love it. And the Grateful Dead Records is beginning. They're about to record Wake of the Flood. They still haven't even written, really, the Weather Report suite. That was an August thing. So it's a fascinating time for the Grateful Dead. So much going on.
The current season of the good old Grateful Dead cast deserves a mention in here as well, because it goes into great depth about this era. And it is kind of fascinating to think that they were starting all of these businesses at that time, recording an album. And I know, because I was a brand new Deadhead and I was ready for them to come and play, and they hardly played in the Bay Area at all that year. I saw the February 9th, I saw Kezar, and I saw the shows at Winterland later, but they were off the road for quite a while in '73. So It's an interesting year. It's interesting that they are so musically, incredibly, just burgeoning musically, and playing fewer gigs that year.
Yeah,
it is amazing. They took virtually the entire summer off, from April through September, through the Nassau, coming back to Nassau, to the September Nassau shows. They pretty much took it off, with the exception of these 5 shows, the 6-show Pacific Northwest and Universal Amphitheater run. And then, of course, the big ones in July, the Watkins Glen and Roosevelt Stadium with the band right after. But aside from that, they weren't touring. They weren't doing what most bands would be doing.
Yeah, and I think maybe the fact that those shows became more consequential because of the scarcity of live shows that year, and they were in a lot of them were in really big spaces. I think that also gave a special focus to those shows.
I totally agree. I feel that there's something very, each one feels like an event. It doesn't feel, in the fall, when they did do 3 very distinct tours, they did the September one starting in Nassau, and they did the October Oklahoma City, and then the December, the one without Donna Jean, when they started in Boston, with a lot of shows in November, the Winterlands that David just mentioned. Those feel like a touring act, but everything before that, it was an event, a really big event. And they were, Iowa, playing in a big fairgrounds for, I think, 12 to 15,000 people. Santa Barbara was a huge crowd. Kezar was a huge crowd. And then RFK, of course, with the Almonds. A lot of big events that summer, that May through Roosevelt Stadium, some big event shows.
And '73 also saw the introduction of a couple of very major compositions. I mean, Eyes of the World opened up the Grateful Dead's harmonic and rhythmic universe in a whole new direction. It's weird. Here Comes Sunshine is the title track from your box set, and it's a song that got a lot of play that year and then disappeared for 20 years. Well, it's an interesting thing, but it's such an interesting song. And as we will find out when you publish the box set, Jerry made an amazing demo of that song, which we will get to hear later this year.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
That's a song, since we're in the middle of a Dead and Company show, that's a song that when it came out on Wake of the Flood, I said, wow, the Grateful Dead are almost going pop here. It's almost a little Beatlesque or something. But when they took it out live, they hit that 5 chord and worked that for, sometimes 15, 20 minutes. And that's become a hallmark of Dead and Company's versions of it. The jams on that just build and build and build, and they keep elaborating on it. So it became much more of a vehicle for improvisation than maybe even Jerry intended for it.
Well, and they started playing it at the Maples show that David mentioned, and every show when they played it through 73, they didn't play it every night, but they did play it a lot. It got bigger and better, and the jam you're talking about just got bigger and more explosive with a bigger peak. And it is wild, David, that at the February 74, they played it one more time, and that was it. And it just, I mean, it's one of those songs that this is one thing, I never question it. I never question the band members about it. But the way songs come and go in and out of the Grateful Dead repertoire, at their peak, they leave the repertoire. I am always very curious about that. And Here Comes Sunshine is one of these songs that it wasn't as though it kind of kept getting worse as the year. The ones in November and December are the best ones. And you think of the one on Dick's Picks Volume 1.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the penultimate version. It kept getting better, and then they just dropped it. And this is, another great thing I love about the Grateful Dead is that they didn't rest on their laurels. It's something that, I'm not a musician, but when Jerry would lock into a riff that was really cool, a great melody, he wouldn't sit on it. He wouldn't keep playing it over and over. He'd just move right on. He'd maybe give it a few bars and then move right on. He didn't just rest on his laurels. And that's Here Comes Sunshine is a great example of that, where every version through the year just kept getting better and bigger, and the peak exploded more, and then they just put it away for 20 years.
Yeah. This would be a good moment to mention that you can pre-order the Here Comes Sunshine box set at dead.net, friends.
It is. It's available only at dead.net. And the RFK show, the final night, June 10th, is as a standalone 4 CD set with the set with the Allman Brother guys sitting in. Oh, right. And it's also on vinyl as an 8 LP set, and it sounds phenomenal. Plangent Processes has done their thing with the tape restoration and the speed correction, and Jeffrey's done his thing with the Jeffrey Norman mastering. So it sounds great. I mean, we've been proofing, it was a while ago, proofed the test pressings, and it sounded like you're listening to analog tape in your home. It's really wonderful.
I just want to interject something that's completely irrelevant to the music on that box set. But one of my favorite, just sweet little Grateful Dead gestures in 1973, you mentioned the shows that Donna Jean wasn't at in late 73. She told me some years ago that when she was in the last stages of her pregnancy and still with the band, they bought her a beautiful rocking chair that had its own road case. And it got put in the trucks with all the gear, and then they put it backstage for Donna to sit in when she wasn't singing. So I've always loved that story.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at some pictures recently of early November. It was the November 1st show. A really great show to end that October leg of the tour. Ended on November 1st in Illinois, and Donna's quite pregnant then, and I guess she gave birth to Zion mid-January, so of 74. Yeah. So she was 7 months then. So yeah, it was, and then she did the rest of the November shows, kept getting more pregnant, and then she sat out from November 30th onward. So no rocking chair came on that part of the tour.
I think she also told me that Bill Graham sent a plane to fly her home when it was time. Is that correct?
I think so.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think so. One more story. When Donna was singing Pregnant on stage, some loon jumped up the audience and seemed to be coming toward her. And she said, Bobby and Phil stepped in front of her, and they had the necks of their guitars crossed, guarding her from the guy. And she said it was just like the Knights of the Round Table.
oh, Bob and Phil, you guys.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. David, we got about 5 minutes left here. Let's talk about what else is going on. We've got the meetup at the movies is coming.
Yes. And, this is a show that we did a series 20 years ago or more called View from the Vault. It was a DVD video series. And the second one is from June 14th of 91 at RFK Stadium. There's RFK again. And when we selected that show, it came very close to being a week later, June 22nd at Soldier Field. And they were so close. They were neck and neck. It was the kind of thing, if we could have done a 2 DVD set, 2 disc set, we would have done both. They were both so great, but we always knew that when the time comes, we'll just do the Soldier Field show. when we get to the next 91 show. And the series ended after 4 installments. And so we never got a chance to do it. Then when the meetup started, it was always something we had on our radar, and it was originally scheduled to come out in 2020. That's when we started production on the Soldier Field show. And then things happened. The pandemic took over. And then last year we did for the 50th anniversary of Europe 72, we did Tivoli. And so this year, finally, June 22nd, 1991 at Soldier Field, the Dead's first time they played Soldier Field. Magnificent show. Just one of those. I remember talking with Blair about this show a lot, and Blair loved it. He was the one who really turned me on to it, really had me digging deep into it. I said, well, this show will definitely be a release someday. We really didn't want to do it as a CD only release because the the video component's so competitive. The band looks great. Bruce Hornsby and Vince Welnick carrying on that side of the stage. Bob, Jerry, and Phil playing great, and the drummers are just on fire. So to me, it's another peak era. The Dead had a lot of peaks, but this is a late era peak for the Grateful Dead. That summer 91, spring through fall, that whole 91 period when Bruce was playing is just some of my favorite Grateful Dead. And there are a lot of highlights in this show. There's a huge Terrapin Station, massive Shakedown Street. First set is filled Wang Dang Doodle. It's great. And Jerry's got that horn going on the Wang Dang Doodle intro with his MIDI guitar. Just a really, really top-notch show. It looks amazing. So this is going in theaters June 22nd and June 24th. So it'll be I think it's a Wednesday and a Friday, or Thursday, Saturday, for whatever it is. It's the 22nd and 24th at a lot of theaters. You just go to the website, meetupatthemovies.com or dead.net. And you type in your zip code, it'll show where it's playing. And even in a place like Vancouver, it's playing several theaters nearby. All the places sort of near me, which is Seattle and Portland, it's playing plenty of places. So it should be playing somewhere near everybody.
I'm glad you mentioned Vancouver, because I also wanted to ask you about your life. You live in Victoria, BC, in a beautiful, beautiful part of the universe, and you post photos of your sunrises, and you post photos of your fishing expeditions, and you're hanging out with Lucky Bud. You seem to have a really good life up there in Victoria, BC.
I do. I'm grateful for what I have. And I work from home. And so I've got my office, which I'm in right now, and I've got a studio space, which is a little area that I've carved out. I've put some sound stuff up. So it's not a studio, but it's a studio space, I call it, with my microphone and some listening in there as well. But I take advantage of, about a year ago, I broke my foot. And that was a moment when I said, I'm going to never take my health for granted again. And that's why, even with the surgery I'm just trying to get out more. And I always have got out more, with whether it's fishing or looking for bears or walking around the neighborhood. But it was the broken foot that when I was laid up for about 10 weeks, and I said, I'm not going to take my health for granted anymore. And living where I live, I'm able to go for a run down by the water, or go see bears, or go fishing, or whatever it is. So I love where I live, and I'm very grateful that I ended up here. It's a good place. I recommend anybody to come visit. It's a terrific place to live.
And one of the things that you do in your studio space is record your voice work for the daily feature on SiriusXM's Grateful Dead channel, which we also should mention. You do This Day in Grateful Dead History on the Grateful Dead channel every day at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern time.
I do, and that's been almost 16 years. Started that in 2007. Dave, the one who called me in August of 2007. You called and said Sirius is going to have a Grateful Dead channel, and you were a prime mover in that. You said, we'd love to get you involved. Do you have any ideas? I go, yeah, we'll do a daily thing. And you said, great. And that's how it started. It was you and I on the phone, and we went for it. And that's now 5,700 shows later. I've never missed a day, 7 days a week, and that goes for 16 years. And I love it. I just actually recorded some this morning. I love doing it every single day. It's a joy to do, whether it's selecting the music or talking about the music. I've never once ever said, oh, I got to do this thing. I love doing this show. I can't wait to hit 10,000 in 10 years or whatever it is.
We are out of time now. We have to go back to the stage, but I just think that that's a perfect moment to wrap it up on, because here we are, 3 middle-aged dudes who love their jobs.
We do.
Hey, thank you for the flattery of calling me middle-aged, because that means I'll live to be like 140 something. So anyway, Mr. Lemieux, always a pleasure. And I hope to see you in person soon. I hope you can make some shows on the tour. I am going to get out there and do my roving reporter thing a bit, and maybe we'll run into each other.
Right on, guys. All right, thanks for having me. And Dead and Company's playing great. I've been tuning into all of the streams, and wow. So
Yeah,
have fun.
We are in complete agreement on that score as well, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
And
All right,
enjoy
see you soon.
We're going to throw to the second set right from here, so enjoy it, everybody.